It's the last call for Plastisol, competition barely. Come discuss the field with your host Christy and Jeremy. Have a drink, kick your feet up, watch the ink, and get ready for a motion. Notice hearing what you think. Shout out, Monarch Color, Blue Ridge, they're the best. Core Kim hold it down like the automatic press. BMI, they've been sticking with our team. Hey, you know that they are go-to for whenever that we need. Last call, Plastisol, last call. The last call, Plastisol, last call. Last call, Plastisol, last call. The last call, Plastisol.
So, Christy, do you want to intro?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Today we have Brandt Farmer from Farmhouse Apparel. That's right.
That's it? Yeah.
Hey, Brandt. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good.
And Jeremy and I are actually in two different locations today, which is funny because this will be one of 2 weeks that we actually have two shops. So I guess we should relish this, that we have two shops.
Yeah, I relish it. I actually ran into some utility things today, and they said, hey, as long as you have, if you're within a 2-week window, you can have utilities in your name at 2 different locations.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm going to have the gas turned on here because it's freaking cold in the morning, and tomorrow probably. But yeah, we're transitioning. We're going to be moving some equipment this week so that we don't have to go down in production. Very important.
Yeah.
We'll transition we'll move this other equipment the following week. So 2 weeks in a row of just straight moving.
And painting ceiling tiles. Brandt, I don't know about your shop, and we're going to learn more about it, but Jeremy and I have been painting ceiling tiles, or trying to paint ceiling tiles, this is the 5th day. Would not recommend.
I saw something on Instagram about that. I started screen printing in 2014 in my garage. I wanted to quit a job. I was a graphic designer for a automotive marketing company, one of 2 automotive marketing companies, but I always wanted to do t-shirts. It was always something I was passionate about, even at a young age. One thing, I have an older sister, and she was always like, hey, if you go to a concert or something, don't buy an album, don't buy a CD, buy a t-shirt, because back then you could only get band t-shirts when you saw them live, you know. So I've always had this stigma that t-shirts are cool, they're unique, and so I've always wanted to make them. And then when I wanted to quit that job, I saved up money for about 6 months. Took one of those weekend workshops with Ryanette. I drove to Arkansas, learned how to screen print in 2 days, I guess, kind of, or you just got hands on the equipment. I bought a 4-color, 2-station silver tabletop press, loaded it all in my car, and drove back to Georgia, and started screen printing. A couple of months later, I ended up quitting that job, but then life happens, and I underestimated what it would take to actually start a screen printing business from scratch, you know, with no experience at all, because I still had to learn how to screen print. Luckily, when my money ran out, when my savings ran out, I got offered a different job at a second automotive marketing company that paid really good money. So I took that job while I continued to learn how to screen print and build that business up. And then in 2020, COVID happened, and I think that gave a lot of people an excuse to change their trajectory, change their what they wanted to do with their life, you know. So I was kind of looking at my situation. I was like, I've built this business up a little bit. I think I can take that leap and go full time, you know. And so that's what I did in 2020. And I was kind of doubling my business every couple of years in revenue. And then a couple of years after COVID, I was like, hey, I can't do this. Like, I can't continue this. I'm not scalable right now, just by myself on a manual. I had upgraded to a 4-color, 4-station Riley Hopkins that I bought used with a conveyor dryer, all that kind of good stuff. And I started looking at auto stuff. I started kind of deciding, what am I going to buy a better manual and be more proficient with that? Am I going to hire an employee, which I ended up doing. And then the open house that you guys put on popped up, and me being from growing up in South Carolina, being from that area, my wife's from the Charlotte area. I was like, well, let me go check this out. I'm going to go down there and hang out, and that started a whole different trajectory. But I guess my background is in graphic design. Being an artist, I went to the University of South Carolina. I grew up in Myrtle Beach. That might,
Okay. I was going to ask where you're from.
yeah. So I'm originally from Athens, Georgia. That's where I was born, but that's where I'm living outside of Athens, Georgia now. But I grew up in Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach to be specific. And then I went to high school in Conway. So I've always kind of been artistic. I've always been into the arts. My family's a musical family. My mom plays the piano. My dad played the guitar a little bit. My sister ended up doing music education. She taught music for a long time. So it's always been a creative kind of environment. And we were always pretty talented in doing that kind of stuff. In high school, though, I took a photography class, and it was all analog stuff. So you did film, cameras, manual settings. You developed your film. You printed your prints in the darkroom. And looking back on that, I'm like, well, that's why screen printing makes so much sense. Like making screens, it's a very similar process. I know that the screen making trips some people up, but it all kind of made sense to me. Um, and then in University of South Carolina, I studied media arts. I did an art studio minor or a fine art minor kind of thing. So I got all the traditional stuff, and then I got some of the newer stuff with that as well.
That's awesome. I actually lived in Conway at one point, too.
Did you? Nice.
Yeah, I did when I was a little kid. It's an interesting area.
So what I wanted to know right off the get was, are you in your house, or do you have a shop?
Yeah, so I'm working out of my house. So yeah, when I decided to go full time, we had the opportunity to move on to some family property that was vacant, and the mostly completely unfinished basement. And so that's where I started screen printing. And then after I went to the open house, I was talking around with some people, and they're like, "Yo, stay in your house as long as you can. Like, you don't need the overhead if you're learning how to use an auto." Um, so I kind of mapped it out, and I was like, we didn't knock down a wall because all of the walls in my basement are load bearing, but we did widen some walls and where I could get a conveyor dryer through. Um, and then I bought the press based on what I could fit in there comfortably. Um, so yeah, I've decided to kind of just stay in the house. I tell people all the time, like, uh, you're always at home, but you're always at work too. So it's kind of a catch-22 working from home all the time,
Yeah.
because you go upstairs, and it is nice to have it upstairs, downstairs, but you go upstairs and you're still thinking about, man, if I go back downstairs and clean screens tonight, I'll be ahead of the game tomorrow. Or you just stay up all night and work. Like it's a challenge.
Yeah, I can see that. Jeremy and I both started in our houses too. Once I had taken over like 3 rooms of my house, my ex-husband was like, "You got to move this business out of the house. It's taking over." So I'm really impressed that you were able to fit an auto, and a nice auto into your space. How did you choose the Anatol auto?
Well, so I have a friend who's a couple towns over. He has a small, I think it's a Titan. But there was a week where I wasn't super busy and he needed some help, and he's like, "Hey, can you come run my press for me?" And so I wanted the experience on an auto, and I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll come." So for a couple of days that week, I just went and loaded shirts, pushed the manual print button. So that was my first impression of an Anatol. And then I guess because of just screen printing stuff, I got an email, for the open house, and I was like, let me go check this out. I want to see the electric Volt. I'm not a mechanically inclined person. Like, I don't change my car oil. Like, I know enough to solve a problem, but I don't want to mess with air compressors and check airlines and all that kind of stuff. I want the least amount of maintenance I could possibly get. So that was one reason why the Volt was a good choice for me. And also, like, I know compressors are loud. So like if I'm literally underneath the bedroom and my wife's trying to sleep while I'm gonna work late, I need it to be quiet to be in my house. Um, so those were kind of why I went with Anatol, went with the Volt.
That's awesome. I think that that's really interesting that you chose that. I like that you chose it based on the size of your location too. I was kind of confined at my old shop too and so there were only a couple presses that could fit in my footprint of my shop. So I think a lot of people just starting out, or even like they just love their building or they love their landlord, or, they have a great price on rent, they have to choose their equipment based on the footprint of their shop. So I don't think you're alone in that at all. What do you think about the Volt so far?
I love it so far. It I mean, there's definitely a learning curve. I was a little intimidated at first because I was like, I got this big machine downstairs. Now I'm not really sure what to do, and I kind of doubted myself a little bit. But then when I actually like started doing some simple jobs and like figuring it out, I was like, all right, if I have an issue, I know how to assess that issue based on what I would do on a manual. Like I have screen printing experience. Like for example, like, hey, this white isn't printing good because my underbase isn't flashing enough. Like I know what that looks like when I see it. So it's just a matter of um, the manual. Obviously, you have instant feedback when you're printing, and you don't have that on auto so much. So you still have to actively print. You have to be proactive in what you're doing, setting it up, and then you can't just forget about what you're doing. You have to keep on it. So I think that was the biggest learning curve is like you still have to be proactive. It's definitely not a set it and forget it kind of thing. But I'm definitely getting the a better quality print, because that was one of the biggest things for me is I'm chasing quality. As an artist, I'm like I want it to look a certain way. I can't achieve that manually. I think you can. I'm sure there are people who are incredible, but I wasn't achieving that, and some of it was I was limited by my equipment. So when I realized that, I was like, all right, do I want to be a manual printer and stay manual, or do I want to actually go auto? And I saw the Stampinator for the first time, and I was like, this makes too much sense. Um, the manual version wasn't out yet, so I was like, I was already thinking auto anyway. I kind of knew that's where, if I was going to stay in screen printing and keep doing it, I was going to go auto.
Yeah, I was going to ask if his quality improved over the time since you got your auto. And so the Stampinators also helped you mat down that finish. Has your customers noticed the difference in those?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I do it just because I know it's going to look better. I haven't really like told people like, hey, look at the better print, but I think it's pretty evident. But then again, there's this mindset I have like as if I'm being super particular about the design, like most people aren't going to know the difference between like a good screen print and a great screen print. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just say it's like 80% good. People are going to think that's awesome, but I'm nitpicking it and I'm like, nah, it needs to be more closer to 100%. I think some people have a hard time distinguishing that margin of like good to great, except for the people who are like specifically focused on that skill set can tell the difference. So most people probably wouldn't know that it's better. They may like be like, oh, this is a really nice shirt, um, but I don't know that they would know anything really changed because they're not looking at it the way I am.
So you had said that you started to look for an auto, and obviously we talked about space, but like, was there anything else? Were you just experiencing fatigue from doing too much manual labor, or was it really just a quality push?
I mean, it was both. I I mean, I was walking around hunched over. Like, I underestimated the physical toll manual screen printing takes on you when you're doing 200 pieces at a time. And I even hired somebody to help me, and we were two man working on like a manual. So like he would load, um, I would print and unload, and then while he wasn't loading, he would stack shirts and sort. And we were pretty efficient doing that, and then we would swap places when one of us got tired. But the first shirt doesn't look the same as the last shirt. Um, and so like it was a combination of all of that. But um, I just I started seeing like the designs later on, people washing them and like they're cracking. Some of it was the ink. Like I did change. I went to Monarch ink, um, and what I was using just wasn't cutting it. Yeah. I was having problems with certain colors not being opaque enough, and um, when you're on a manual, some of that's just really hard to handle and hard to be consistent with from print to print. So, um,
So, anything else that may have surprised you from going to a manual to an auto and like implementing that into your shop? Maybe any things you wish you would have known before you took the leap into an auto?
yeah, it was a lot more expensive. The setup was a little bit more. So, like renovating my space a little bit. All I did was, it's still studded out. You know, I had plans to put up paneling and stuff and make it look nice. Um, and even some ceiling stuff. But I um, got so busy in February. I thought it was going to be a downtime, but it wasn't. But like the electricity, like a house, yeah, the electricity in a house is 200 amps. So I had to add a whole new fuse box and up my ampage at the meter. So I had to find an electrician. I was kind of under a crunch. I was trying to do it within a few weeks, and it was right around Thanksgiving. Um, so I had to find an electrician. Not only was he available, but he had a meter base to go on the outside of the house. Like apparently those are like a dime a dozen right now. Like, um, and luckily we had some family friends who had one, and he could do it. And they did that. They put the fuse box in, pulled my drops. That was a lot more expensive than I kind of anticipated. And then um, we took a doorway from a normal doorway and made it 10 feet wide. And then we punched several other holes, not holes, other doorways in the basement so that we have an entrance and an exit of every room. So that I wasn't sure of the configuration of what I was going to do, but that way, if I wanted to go clockwise around the place, I could, or if I wanted to go counterclockwise around it, I could. Um, so that was a lot of it. But I also, you know, you go up in screen size. So I went from 24 by 20s to 23 by 31s. And so I don't have the screen inventory I had at one time. So now I'm like washing more screen. I'm reclaiming more, um, realizing that I can print faster now, but of the time of the percentage of a job, the printing's less, but now the cleanup and the teardown is a larger percentage of that job. And so I underestimated how much work that was for sure.
Yeah. And then as far as your dryer, did you upgrade your dryer too, or is that dryer still able to keep the capacity of your auto?
No, part of my issues that I was having was curing issues as well. So like I had replaced the flash dryer, but I was using I think it's a black body dryers. You know, it's very small. Um, and I think that was part of my curing issues. So like I was like gonna have to upgrade the dryer. So I got the press, the dryer, and I actually upgraded my exposure unit as well. Um, and there was about 6 to 9 months between, yeah, there was about 6 to 9 months between the time that um, let's just say if the open house was my catalyst for really pursuing auto, um, I started changing small things as I went. I was able to pick up like a cabinet dryer, like a screen cabinet dryer, used. That was basically brand new. Started changing like my emulsion, like the ink. I started changing small things, um, just so that when I did make the big leap, a lot of these other processes and smaller things were in place.
Now, were you using a quartz flash before, or were you using just an infrared flash?
Yeah, so it was an infrared flash. Funny story, the the flash that I had I bought used with the Riley Hopkins, and it actually like melted the outlet at one point. Like I guess we just didn't have
Oh
it wired up
gosh.
right. Um, yeah, so that was an eye opener. Luckily, we caught it when it happened and not before it got too crazy. But I upgraded to another infrared dryer or flash, and I never could really get it dialed in right. And I guess it's just because it was much better than I was used to. So like I just couldn't manually print fast enough to flash it properly. But I on that was another reason why the auto stuff I was like I needed it. I have like a temp sensor on the new flash for it's a quartz flash on the auto, and then the Stampinator. So like I have temp controls on those. You know, the timing, the settings of that kind of stuff is a lot easier to manage and not have any kind of bad problems. However, I will tell you one of the biggest things I've struggled with the new dryer is I've scorched so many I've scorched more garments in the new dryer than I have misprinted stuff on the auto because you're going so fast you don't realize that you're backed up into your dryer until you smell it burning. So I've I always think that's funny.
Yeah.
Like one of the easiest things to do is just let the thing go through the dryer, but I've scorched a lot of garments so far.
Yeah, when I first got my auto, I burnt the crap out of shirts because I wasn't used to the quartz flash. And literally, I lit one on fire when the Sam from Anatol went to lunch. That's how
Oh dang.
crazy it got. So you have Manny doing yours. Manny's pretty good. He did an install for me as well. But yeah, it's a huge learning curve when you start to use those things. And are you using the sensor on the flashes, the garment sensor or the ink sensor on the flashes?
Yeah, I do use that setting. I guess I keep it kind of at first I was running everything kind of hot, but it was also really cold in December and January here where I'm at. So I think that's why I was having to do that. And then when the temperature kind of rose a little bit, I was able to back it off. I haven't scorched anything with the flash, but I honestly use the Stampinator more than I do the flash.
So when I bought my auto, I was not smart like you, and I was very stubborn and hard-headed, and I thought they were trying to sell me more stuff than I needed. So I just was running like two D100s to keep up with my auto. It lasted like a
Oh,
week, and then
dang.
I was like, I gotta buy a dryer. I gotta buy a real dryer.
Well,
So good
yeah,
on you
the
for
crazy
buying the
thing is,
dryer with the auto.
yeah, the crazy thing is, last October, I got to a point where the employee that I had, he went on to bigger and better things because he was just part-time with me. Um, however, we had booked a lot of business in September and October, and I was just manually working around the clock. And I got to a point where I was like, all right, either I'm gonna quit and I'm gonna go back and find a graphic design job, or I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna buy whatever I need to make this the best I can make it right now, at least. And so that's one reason why I was like auto, as big as I can fit in the space, um, a new dryer that's legit. It's a two zone forced air BBC. I couldn't tell you the model number or anything, but um, and then I was still using a small exposure unit. And so I went with the LED. The exposure unit's an Anatol quick light. It's right behind me, so that's why I can see. But um, my exposures went down from 4 minutes to 7 seconds. So like I saved a ton of time between switching emulsions and then in between switching the exposure unit.
Are you using film for burning your screen?
Yeah, I'm still using film right now. That was one thing me and Aaron talked about was some different options for that, but I wasn't ready to quite pull that trigger yet. I'm like, hey, I'm already spending a ton of money. Like, yeah, let me see how this goes.
I think that's really smart to like know your business and know what you're comfortable, like what your risk tolerance is, and know like you don't want to make your life hell upgrading everything at once and then like being stressed out while you're trying to learn new equipment, you know. like, how am I going to make all these payments? So I think that that's really great. And like, once you get dialed in, you can upgrade new equipment as it comes. So what was that turning point when you decided you were going to go all in on this screen printing jam? Like, was there a specific thought that you had where you're like, I know you put all your cards into this, but was there something that made you do that instead of going to graphic design?
Um, some of it is like not wanting to like quit or admit failure. It's like part of me is like, I don't want to give up on this. Like I have a hard time admitting defeat, so I'm like, but at the same time, I was working 2 or 3 days at a time, like taking naps on the futon down here while screens were drying or whatever. And I'm like, this isn't sustainable. Like my wife hates it because I'm not upstairs, and I'm like, I have to make this better. And sometimes I think you need those moments where you're struggling to kind of like, it's almost like you get some clarity uh, going forward. Like, all right, what I'm doing isn't working. I'm not gonna be able to do this in another 3 months. What do I need to change to go forward? Um, and that's kind of where I was. I had a lot of wise counsel around me, and I'm like, hey, does this make sense to you guys? Does this make sense? And everybody was kind of like, you probably should do this.
Yeah. And I know you enjoy the art part of this. How do you do a lot of art for your clients right now? Or what kind of balance do you have with being a graphic designer and being the person screen printing?
Yeah, so obviously it's a challenge. Being a, I hired a guy this past month. So I'm back to being like a 1.5 man print shop. But
Okay.
with it being the art is my focus and my kind of my unique selling position, like I'm like, um, I do want to do that. I do offer that. So I kind of include about an hour of design time in every job that I quote, just so that people have access
Oh,
to
wow.
me, um, from a design perspective. Because I kind of preach it all the time. I'm like, if you don't have a good design, if you don't have a quality garment, and it's not applied properly, it doesn't matter, what your idea is. Like, you got to have it. To me, it starts with a good design because even as a young screen printer, I designed things in a way that made it easier for me to screen print. So that really helped my learning curve, even as a manual. And even sometimes I've done it on the auto where I've designed things a certain way just um, so that I can print it a certain sequence or whatever. Um, but yeah, the design is what I want people to come to me for. Um, and most people do. Some people have clients who are like, "Hey, I need a shirt for this school thing. I don't care. Like, you can make it however you want. It needs to say this, this, and this." And then I have people who send me ideas and they're like, "Hey, I like these three things. Can you combine them together and make me something?" Um, and just with my amount of experience doing that, just graphic design in general, I can do those things fairly quickly. So it's not so much of a time suck on me. Is I want to put some of the other stuff off so I can focus more on the design aspect. Um, but I'm not sure if that answers your question, but the design part is
Yeah,
super
it sure
important to me
does.
and super, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's your unique selling point. So I don't think you should get rid of that at all.
I'm actually over on his merch store, and I see he's. So I mean, you were kind of humble in the beginning here, but you were saying your merch wasn't that great. I mean, you've got vector packs on there. You've got collections, the Lost but Found collection, Dirty Myrtle. You got Monkey Wrench. I see a lot of Monkey Wrench designs on there. So these are original projects that you came up with.
One of my ideas for Farmhouse was not necessarily to be the person that runs the clothing brand, but be more of an IP factory. So like, I have ideas all the time, and it's like, and I get people who tell me ideas for t-shirt brands all the time. They're like, "Oh, you should do this or you should do that." But and my goal would be more to like start it and then sell it off to somebody who wants to take it and run with it. Because I'm good at starting things, but I'm not necessarily good at finishing them all the time. Um, So Dirty Myrtle's obviously me growing up in Myrtle Beach. That's the nickname for Dirty Myrtle. I really enjoy the surf, the skate vibe designs. So for me, it's a creative outlet, but it's also a way to showcase my artwork. So um, I'll do pop-up shops here and there at festivals or farmers markets and just take some shirts and sell them. It's a way for me to get out of the house. It's a way for me to meet people and try to even sell some screen printing because once they realize that I designed it and I screen printed it, um, then they kind of want to work with you and develop something. The Lost But Found was kind of a faith-based thing um, where I was like, I don't want a cheesy shirt. Um, I don't want something that's necessarily in your face, but I want something subtle that looks cool, that has a positive message. And even I've kind of gone in that direction with Farmhouse in general, just shop shirts, I guess you could say. I just make good vibes, whatever kind of t-shirts, and people seem to respond well to that kind of thing. And then Monkey Wrench is me and a friend started a 90s rock cover band. So Monkey Wrench has uh, been a lot of fun for us. Yeah. So obviously it's named after a Foo Fighters song. Um, and we just play around Atlanta and some other places. We all love 90s rock, and that's just what we want to do, have fun. We make a little cash on the side doing it. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to design the brand. I'm going to make t-shirts for us. And we were just talking about it the other day. We've had people come to our shows, buy t-shirts, and then send us pictures of meeting somebody else who they were both wearing Monkey Wrench t-shirts, didn't know each other, but they were in a completely different town. They were on vacation. And I'm like, you can't really buy that kind of marketing, but that's part of what it is. So if we're in a brewery or if we're in a restaurant playing,
Christy calls those shirts in the wild.
Shirts in the wild. Yeah, I love them. I was on my honeymoon and I saw one. I love it. So I got to know though, what is your favorite 90s song?
um, that's tough. I like Smashing Pumpkins 1979.
Okay. Okay, Jeremy, what about you?
Gosh, there's so many. I'm a big fan of Pearl Jam, so
You and Nate are the Pearl Jam
yeah,
people.
I'm a Pearl Jam guy. So probably something from Pearl Jam, like Rear View Mirror is a good song
Yep.
from them.
Some Counting Crows.
Yeah. It's a cool decade of music.
It really is. And we were painting the ceiling tiles in our new office, and I was listening to 90s top hits. And Jeremy comes in, and he's in there painting for a while, and he was like, "What kind of music is this?" And it was like all 90s ballads.
It was like Whitney Houston and stuff. Like, it was pretty bad.
I loved it, though. I really did.
Bon Jovi.
I've got a guilty pleasure for 90s just dance music for some reason.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So your bands, what instrument do you play?
In the 90s band, I play bass. So I play bass and sing, and then we have two other guitar players and a drummer. Yeah.
Do you have more than one band?
No, just Monkey Wrench. I do play at church and stuff. So
Okay. Okay. You were like, in this band, I do this. And
Oh.
I was intrigued by that.
So it looks like you do a lot of artwork Monkey Wrench is pretty cool. I'm still on your merch store. Monkey Wrench is cool. And then you do a lot of Georgia based artwork for the Bulldogs.
yeah, I wouldn't say I do it for I don't do it for the Georgia Bulldogs, but I was raised a Georgia Bulldog, even though I went to the University of South Carolina and now I'm a Gamecock. But being around Athens, it just made sense to me to do some Bulldog stuff. Trying to capitalize on how close can you toe the line to not breaking any copyright thing. So
Yeah. What platform do you run your t-shirt sales on?
it's on Squarespace right now. I need to revamp the whole website. So one of the things that I do for networking and marketing is I'm in a BNI group. I know you guys do that too, I think. And the website guy, and BNI, he's on me about you need more content on your website so that you have better organic search and all that kind of stuff. And I know I need to do it. I just haven't really invested the time in it yet. But that's one of my soon upcoming projects, and I may move away from Squarespace. I'm not exactly sure yet, but
So on the art side of things, Brandt, what's your go-to for like designing? Are you just a sketch guy, then you just try to bring it into like Procreate or something, or are you using Illustrator? What are you using for that?
all of the above. Depending on what it is, if I know it's going to be illustrative, I'm probably going to start it in Procreate. Um, every now and then I will actually sketch it on paper, but Procreate is so intuitive, uh, to the point where because you can tap two fingers to undo, and three fingers to redo your brushstroke or whatever. Like if I go back to like analog paper and pencil, I find myself tapping the paper trying to undo what I just drew. Um, so if I know it's going to be illustrative, I'll do it in Procreate. If I know it's going to be more vector heavy, or if it's like just text or something, I usually just go straight into Illustrator.
Yeah, that's your Instagram videos of you creating a design are like some of my favorites.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, the no rest for the weary. That's so cool. The squeegee with the skull integrated. Yeah, there's just, I mean, like I said, you were humble, but man, you're doing some really cool stuff. I think that it would be really cool to have a Brandt Farmhouse version of Last Call for Plastisol.
I think
Yeah,
so
man.
too.
Let's do it.
We should.
Yeah, dude.
We got to hook it up.
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let's talk about this pretty soon because I feel like we need new T-shirts, and
Yeah.
me and Jeremy are not super artsy.
We have a really cool artist.
We do, yeah. We're lucky.
And it's been a blessing literally in the last 6 months, right? So that in-house artist is very talented, and basically Christy comes up with ideas for Rock Hill screen printing shirts. We try to do. Christy, you got like a program where you're trying to do something every month, right? Or every quarter, maybe?
Yeah, it's like every other month. Last time we printed employee shirts, everybody really wanted them, and so I kind of went a little over budget on them, so we had to skip a month. But because everybody was like, I want this in a T-shirt, and I want it in a hoodie, and I want, which, cool, because the design was cool, and, everybody liked it. So better that than them not wear the shirts that we're giving them. But yeah, I really would like to come up with a new design every month to 2 months for them.
I've kind of got the opposite problem. So whenever I want to make a shop shirt, I just need one. But I end up like, well, I'm not going to print just one shirt. So I end up with like a farmhouse shirt in every color that I have laying around. And so my closet is overflowing with just t-shirts. It's kind of insane.
So we are going to be doing another open house, not at our location, maybe eventually at our location. Yeah. But Christy and I are going out to Iowa to FlyOverCon to basically host an Anatol event. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked about it throughout this podcast so far that you've came through our shop as an open house and learned a lot from it. You said from that point forward, it kind of changed everything for you. What can you share about like what you anticipated it being, what it was actually like? Is there anything you gained from it? Is there any advice you would give?
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of on a whim. One of the first things, I just wanted to see the equipment. Like I wanted to see it. I wanted to see how it operated. The shirt you guys printed that weekend was killer. And then I met Aaron Blank with Blue Ridge, and that was kind of a big deal, or it turned out to be a bigger deal, because I was struggling getting some stuff on time, I guess. We were printing some shirts, and I needed tack, I remember, like the week after that. And I just was like, let me just check out this guy that I met. And like I had the stuff like within 2 days, maybe even the next day, I can't remember. But it was super quick. It was faster than I was going to get it from Amazon or anywhere else. And so that was kind of eye-opening that I was like, all right, so these people are here to help me, everybody was super friendly. I met you guys. I met some other people who were, I didn't really know that they were big shop owners and stuff, but they talked to me like I was another person, you know? And then when I actually looked them up on social media, I was like, oh snap, they actually know what they're doing. You know, they're not just somebody trying to figure it out like me. I was just impressed with the knowledge that everybody had. Everybody was willing to share. It wasn't like, even like the other people who were in attendance, like if we were listening to somebody talk about screens or whatever, you know, the guy was like, oh, well, I do this too, but here's another tip, you know? And so like I picked up a lot of small tips throughout the event. And then it was like, hey, you're not necessarily going to buy a press this weekend, but here are some things to think about as you go forward. Um, all that stuff was pretty invaluable. Um, the crazy thing is, um, I went to the open house, and then literally 2 weeks later, I had somebody call me out of the blue and say, "Hey, can you do 20,000 t-shirts like by the end of the month?" And I was like, "No,
So
no, I
cool.
can't."
Oh my
But
gosh, dude.
and that's when I got on the phone with Aaron, and I was like, "Hey, this might happen faster than I think it's gonna happen." Um, that eventually, I did get a good
Yeah.
bit of shirts out of that, but that didn't work out like I thought it was gonna work out. But still, it was like you put it out there and you kind of change your mindset a little bit, and then you see opportunities where you can make things happen. Um, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you met Aaron, and then you saw the equipment. Obviously, you ended up with the equipment. You ended up with a Volt and a Stampinator. What about like for the education side of things? Did you learn anything while you were there other than just the people you met?
I'm sure I did. I remember one thing I do remember is I had never underbased with anything other than white before, and I remember looking at I think y'all underbased with a cool gray or something, and I had never even thought about that before, and I was like, I'm like, there's techniques and things that I don't know because I'm at home in my basement that I need to get out and meet people, network with other screen printers more, and broaden my horizon, my skill set.
Any advice for maybe somebody that's thinking about going out to the show or any open houses?
Yeah, just do it. And then don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to go up to like I remember meeting both of y'all, and like in my mind, at one point you think like, ah, they're the shop owner, they're not gonna talk to me, but everybody was super approachable. Like, don't be scared to go introduce yourself, and then ask questions.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice. Like, there are very few people in this industry where I've gone up to them and had a bad experience. Most people are really nice and willing to share a lot of information and, hold your hand through things that you haven't done yet if they've been there before, because we all have experiences that we can give each other. So I'm really glad that you found some print homies at the event, and I look forward to meeting a lot of people at Flyover Con. I don't know how far that is away from you, but if you can, you should come. It's April 19th and 20th.
Yeah, Iowa's a long ways from Atlanta.
I have no idea about the Midwest. I don't
That's
know.
cool.
I know a lot
It's a
about
flyover
t-shirts.
state for a reason.
Right.
We always laugh
Yeah.
because Ryan at P&M, I'm like, where are you from again? Which state in the middle of the country?
Yeah.
I can never get it right. So, luckily, I already have my ticket there.
Yeah, and we saw you out at the Atlanta Printing United as well. So
Right.
you were able to go to that, right? Have you ever been out to ISS Long Beach?
No, that's on the docket. So I gotta try and do that sooner
It's
than
really
later. Obviously, yeah, this past year, just getting the auto and getting all that stuff in, I was like, I can't justify spending that money right now, but um, maybe next year.
Yeah, so I have one last question before we wrap up, Brant. I know you're growing and you've got this auto and things are going great for you. What do you think or anticipate your next hire being? Right? Would it just be someone to run your auto, or would it be someone to run sales, or what are you thinking?
I think um, who I just hired, I think can grow into like a production manager type role, um, or just a press operator. So my next person would be somebody that can keep me organized, um, and maybe handle some emails,
That's
like some of the
important. Yeah.
administrative stuff. I operate in organized chaos, um, and I think that's just something about being an artist. Um, I know where everything is, but you wouldn't know where anything is if you walked into my shop. But that it would be something to help me so that I can focus on creative, and I would still probably focus on sales and networking, just because I see creative and sales tied together. So that's just the way I look at it. I'm like, I'm selling my artwork. They want to talk to me. I know that's not necessarily scalable as well, but for right now, I would help somebody get me in, organized and some more administrative stuff. Maybe a customer care type thing, like to handle things after I've brought it in house.
Yeah, I think you could turn that position into someone that organizes you, answers first level emails, does purchasing and receiving, that kind of billing.
Right.
You could have someone that does all those little things that are just like annoying for someone that's creative,
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I have my wife working with me.
Yeah, Jill is a rock star at all of these things.
Oh yeah, my wife keeps me organized. I tell people she's the reason I'm a functioning adult. Like we're polar opposites. So she's super organized. She's got it together. I'm like the, I'm like whatever, go with the flow kind of, like, I joke with her all the time. I'm like, hey, like, let's just go to the airport with a book bag and just like pick somewhere and just like whatever is the next flight out, like, let's just take that and go there. But she's like, oh, well, what's the climate going to be? And like, how long are we going to be there? And like, what are we going to do while we're there? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's just go. So that describes us being
Figure it
how
out.
different we
Yeah.
are.
Do you have a passion or a purpose?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one, Jeremy.
Yeah. So passion for me would be, just the creative side of it. I think what I love about what I do is taking an idea that doesn't exist, or it's just kind of like an intangible thing floating around in the sky, and like bringing it to life, putting it on paper, putting it on a t-shirt, really any kind of medium, but obviously t-shirts, the medium we like to work in. Um, and then purpose is, um, I think, not to get too religious, but like I'm called to love people and to be a good steward of what I'm given. So that starts for me being a good husband, loving and leading my wife properly, being a good son, honoring my parents, a good brother, a good uncle, that kind of thing. And then a good friend, for those that are around me. So that's kind of where I see just the purpose of life.
Awesome. Love that.
Me too. Well, Brandt, it's been great chatting with you. How can people who listen to this podcast find you, see your work, any of that kind of stuff? What's your Instagram handle, website, etc.?
Yeah. So farmhouseapparel.com is the website. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is at farmhouse_apparel or at Brandt Farmer. If you find one of those, you'll find the other for sure. And then if you want to see you want to go deep dive into the artwork, you can go to brandtfarmer.com. That'll take you to my Dribble site, so you can see more of a portfolio type thing. Yeah, and you can just Brandt at farmhouseapparel.com is my email.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. It was a pleasure having you on the show, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Cool. For those of you who are tuning in, make sure you like, click, and subscribe to the podcast, and also follow us on Instagram. Brandt, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. We wish you all the best of luck, and we will be in touch about that t-shirt design.
Yeah, dude. We'll do it.
All right, man. Cheers. Have a good week.
Cheers.
You too, man.